What's going on, guys? Welcome back. It is freezing cold, that's why I got my gloves on and my hoodie up. But pretty excited. The guy that lent me the Sola frames actually had a pair of the Kizer Element II frames, and so these frames are the frames we're going to be testing out today. They are another aluminum frame. The two things I'm kind of interested in checking out on these frames are the fact that, one, it's a rockered frame, meaning the two center wheels are smaller than the two outside wheels, kind of like the Wish frame, as well as this giant H-block. The Sola H-block was much smaller than this, didn't have nearly as much wheel bite protection over here. And the other thing here, the real important thing that I'm kind of excited about for these frames compared to the Solas are the fact that the base of the boot to the, I guess, inside point, the highest point on the H-block right here is quite narrow here. So I'm really excited to see how that translates to actually getting boot down on my Royales. That's something I always struggle with these boots because how narrow this sole plate is. Having anything taller than like this or the Sola frame, it's real tough to get boot down. So these are actually a little bit skinnier in this area than the Sola frames, so I'm really excited about that. These come in at $99 US, so they are significantly cheaper frames than the Sola frames. The frames are just as narrow, sidewall, maybe just a hair thicker than the Solas, but I mean pretty much the exact same sidewall, which is really nice. Again, being able to get back that space on that narrow sole plate of mine. These do have a little bit of just a rounded out spot where the actual part of the frame that connects with the boot actually fills out my UFS channel on the sole plate. When the frame is getting pushed to the side, it actually can be pushed against the boot a little bit in that groove instead of just basically relying on the two UFS bolts. So that might be a good thing just for structural rigidity. The outside wheels are a 64 millimeter. I'm not sure, I'm pretty sure you can rock up to a 65 millimeter on here. Looks like I have quite a bit of room. So pretty sure you can rock 65 on the outsides, 60 or 58 inside. I'm not sure the inside. I'll put that in on the screen here to let you know the exact setups that you can rock on these. But yeah, I'm pretty excited to see how these compare and contrast to the Sola frames. So let's strap up and get it. So, right off the bat, I believe these are brand new bearings inside these brand new wheels, and there's some wicked ABEX 7s. I'm not trying to say anything bad about them, but I have never skated on a slower bearing in my life. I'm not sure if it's the cold, if it's the bearing, if they're old and I don't know it, but basically all I'm trying to say is I'm not really doing much air work here today because I just can't get the speed to go up the freaking ramp. Like, I'm pushing as hard as I can and I can barely air a quarter. Like, it's that bad. It's also kind of inhibiting me from hitting coping grinds a little bit, just because I can't sense the speed that I would normally send into a coping trick, because I like to have speed going up the ramp without having to throw my body up it. Because once you throw your body up the ramp, you're basically throwing your center balance all off and you're focusing on getting up to the top rather than what you're gonna do when you get to the top. So yeah, really sorry that I'm not gonna get as many cool shots today, but I just can't skate. These bearings, man. Bearings are one of the most important things you can actually have in your skate, especially if you're skating ramps. You need speed to do anything at bigger parks. So just wanted to throw that out there so you guys aren't wondering like, what's he doing? Like, why is he not getting air and stuff? That's why. All right, let's keep going. Here we are, a few days later, but let's get this review done. So what do I think about the Kizer Element II frames? Well, let's have a look. So the first off for the pros, and this is a really big one for me, these are the cheapest metal frames on the market, coming in at $99 right now. That alone kind of makes me just want to pick up a pair, because they're basically what, I think, $19 more than the Wish frames, so it's right in the ballpark of just grab them just to have them kind of a deal. Like all metal frames, they got amazing power transfer. I can't tell you how much fun skating on a metal frame is when you're skating bowls and pools, coping, launching quarter pipes or fun boxes or whatnot. It's just having that just solid frame to foot feeling it's just such a great feeling. Like most metal frames, they have a narrow sidewall. They're not quite as narrow as the Sola frames, but they're basically the same. The only difference between these frames and the Sola frames, like I mentioned before, is at the base of the frame, they actually fill out that UFS channel, which I think can actually enhance the power transfer. Having that little ridge, that little channel that it goes into, doesn't allow that frame to slide any direction sideways. And again, like with all metal frames, they have race axles or just a one-sided bolt. I love these because they're just so easy to get wheels on and off and take frames, you know, if you gotta swap frames out or whatnot. It's just such a breeze. I love having this ability. The only downside though, with these frames, I had to tighten them up on 2 occasions. So not sure if it's just the fact that there's less like Loctite on that, or they're just some small machining issue. I'm not sure, but they did loosen up on me, and while the Sola frames stayed tight through every session I took them on. So the next pro is the fact that the H-block is very low, shallow to the base of the boot. Basically right here to the bottom of the boot. This little area right there is very, very narrow, which makes it awesome on such a narrow boot like mine. I don't have to go that far to get boot down with this frame. Say this is my arm is my rail, and all I gotta do is just go from here, boom, I'm already boot down. They also have a really big wheel bite protection area here. This is a huge groove, and this wheel bite protection area really helps to lock onto those round rails. It makes the lock just amazing. I didn't get any wheel bite while using these because the wheels are so spread so far apart, and this wheel bite protection really helps from touching the wheels on anything. The frames slide pretty well without any wax on metal surfaces. And lastly for the pros, again, like all metal frames, they look dope and they sound even better. The first con, one of the bigger cons for me, is the wheelbase. The wheelbase is only 260 millimeters. And while that's enough to skate on, I prefer a longer wheelbase when I can, and because these are park frames, I would almost want a longer wheelbase, because when you're going fast, airing, doing all sorts of stuff, what happens with a shorter wheelbase is when you land, they can take off on you and feel a little bit squirrely, whereas if you have a longer base, they feel more like you can land on tracks, like you're on skis or something. I mean, the wheelbase for me just isn't my favorite because it's so short. I can deal with it, but I'd much rather have a longer wheelbase. The second con for me is the H-block shape. The H-block shape is great for a round rail because it can just sit on there and you just feel locked. Problem is, once you get a angle iron, which I basically say that's the angle iron, and that H-block is the curve, you can slide all around in this curve area on an angle iron, and you don't feel locked in at all, ever. So I'm just not a huge fan of it on angle irons. And to add to that H-block shape, the fact that it does have more wheel bite protection can be a good thing if it was plastic. The wheel bite protection on this frame is all metal, And what happens when you're on on coping or a ledge that has concrete behind it, say this is like the coping pipe right here and there's some concrete behind here. What happens if you lock onto that coping and you go just a little bit too far over the backside there, that backside is gonna bite on that concrete behind the coping or behind the angle iron, and you literally will not move. This little bit right here is like an ice pick. It's similar. The wish frame kind of has a little bit more roundedness to it, but the big deal changer for this, I don't think it's the shape. I think it's the fact that it's metal on concrete. This thing literally is like an ice pick. Once it touches the backside of the coping or that ledge, the concrete area, it's literally just gonna chunk it out and it's not gonna slide at all. You're not gonna move on that. It's a really, really scary feeling. I've never felt that on any other skate because I think it's because of the metal factor. And that's where I don't like this much wheel bite protection on a metal frame. And the last con is the fact that while these are metal and yes, you can grind on concrete, these really aren't meant to be grinding on concrete. Like I said before, you will stick in certain situations, especially if you get that wheel bite protection ice pick area stuck into concrete. Yeah, I think if the concrete's waxed up a ton and it's very hard and smooth, I think you'll have no problem, but these are really meant for coping and the park and metal, grinding metal, or handrails. So I wouldn't be going around grinding a bunch of concrete with these. So who are these frames made for? I believe these frames are made for the park rat, the guy that just or girl, that likes to go out to the park and just send it with airs, pump some bowls, grind a bunch of round coping or handrails and whatnot. That's really what these are meant for. Who these are not for are the street skater, the person that's just going out and trying to find concrete ledges all over and skate that. These are not the frames for you. So I guess the big question is, how do these stack up against the Sola frames that I've tried? Well, let's take a look. They are better for locking H-block tricks. Like I said before, that deep groove on round rails is so nice. It locks and you're just in there. You can just sit on that groove like it's awesome. Be careful though, because like I said, that ice pick nature, if you are skating ledges or coping with concrete behind it, if you get just a little bit too far over and catch that concrete, you ain't sliding anywhere. But that being said, the Solas are similar in this regard because the Solas have less wheel bite protection. So if you do get over and catch that concrete, you're gonna be catching it on your wheel and sticking pretty much similar, the same way. The difference is the Sola frame, the wheels are sunk in a little bit more where the grind space is. So I almost feel like it's easier to catch that ice pick wheel bite protection area on these Kizers than it is to catch the wheels on the Sola frame. These Kizer frames do allow to have a mixed wheel setup, and I really like that because you can ride some bigger wheels, which in turn is allowing you to roll faster and keep momentum better. But again, the downside with that is the fact that it does raise you off the ground a little higher, which is a little less stable for landing and whatnot. But also for topside tricks, especially on ledges, you really have to get that leg and knee down so that frame sits right on top of that topside ledge or coping. And lastly, the wheelbase is also a little bit shorter than the Solas. I really liked the wheelbase on the Solas. I mean, I think 270 millimeters and these are 260. So I like a longer wheelbase, again, because of the ability to just feel stable when you're airing, landing, pumping, going fast. It doesn't feel as squirrely on you like these did. These felt even squirrelier on me than they probably should because they're actually set up to a normal banana rocker. I were to buy these, I would definitely skate them as flat as possible so I can get all wheels touching the ground to get the most stability and traction possible. Really the only thing I was touching the ground while I was skating was like from here to here, which is like all of 6 inches. So like riding a 6-inch frame, didn't feel super solid in my opinion. So that all being said, it's really a toss-up between these and the Solas. I really enjoyed these frames because of that lower H-block area, I can get boot down easier than the Solas. And I am skating mostly coping and round rails for the most part, but I'm not sure if those pros for these frames really outweigh the pros of the Solas do, which is basically just a more stable, versatile frame. It's a really tough decision. These frames have pros and cons and are great for different riding styles. They're both really a great tool for the right rider. I guess the moral of the story is there really is no frame that's perfect. You really have to just try them all and figure out, you know, what are the downsides that I can live with for the benefits that I really want in a frame. And that's why I decided to give these frames the same rating as the Sola frames, which was a 3.75 wheels out of 4. If you guys have any questions about these frames, please leave a comment below. I'd be more than happy to get back to you on that. And if you guys enjoyed this video, please leave a like, comment, subscribe, and make sure you ring that bell so you don't miss any of my uploads. And guys, until next time, just keep rolling.